Okay, good afternoon. Okay, let me try once again. Good afternoon. Okay, how was the food? How was the dessert? That's a challenge for me, right? I made one thing from my side to make me awake, which is I didn't take dessert. So that way I think I'll try to compromise on that part to make sure that I don't get asleep. But how are you feeling about webcams so far? Good? Yeah, very nice, great. So I saw a lot of people saying that they are already using VS 2010, right? How many of you are in VS 2010 here? Okay, many of you. How many of you do web development? Most of you. So you would see that there's a lot of change in the web development scenario these days. Earlier we used to have ASP.NET 1.1, 2.0, where we build hardcore HTML sites, ASP.NET sites, which will render some HTML, which we don't really bother about, right? Just generally see what's happening around. Few JavaScript here and there we try to do, and then we publish the sites. Customers are happy. That's what was the scenario around 5 to 6 years back. Then we started thinking about all this Ajax and all this new stuff that came, which kind of changed the way web works today. But if you see today, there are a lot more challenges there than traditional web development. HTML5, customers are smart enough to ask you, have you implemented HTML5 features in your site? They will ask you the question. CSS3, Sandeep and Raj were showing a lot of stuff in the morning around CSS3 and HTML5. A lot of things have changed. So the way we evolve as a company also has changed, and the way we evolve our products like Visual Studio also has changed quite a bit. Earlier, service packs from Microsoft used to be mostly performance fixes with a few features here and there. Do you agree? Right? And from VS 2008, we took a turn in this. If you remember, when we shipped .NET 3.5 SP1 and VS 2008, we gave a lot of things to the community. First one was Entity Framework. Heard about Entity Framework? Okay. And we also gave this dynamic data application template. We gave Astoria, which is data services that you use today, and quite a few other things like RESTful WCF services, etc. Similarly, VS 2010 also comes with a lot of goodies for web development. Like I said earlier, you might always have new innovations coming on the web, like JavaScript innovations, jQuery innovations, HTML5 innovations, which will come very quickly than our regular release cycles. A product release cycle typically is 2 years release cycle, right? So that's where we thought we want people to be aware of what's new in VS 2010 SP1. My name is Harish. I work as a developer evangelist with Microsoft India. I specifically focus on communities, and I own the technical content for big events like TechEd, IndieMix, webcams, etc. That's my Twitter handler if you want to reach out. So before I even start here, how many of you have installed SP1 here? Visual Studio SP1. Okay, few of you, great. So few things came out with SP1. First thing that will stand out is the support for IIS Express. Okay, I'll talk about what it is in a while. The next thing is SQL CE tooling support. Okay, SQL CE is there for quite a bit of time now. In fact, for last 4 or 5 years, it has been in your machines without you knowing. Like we use SQL CE for many of our products internally. If you install Windows, there is a SQL CE that runs in your machine. If you install Visual Studio, there is SQL CE installed on your machine, because we use it as a reference table for our products also. And then web deployment 2.0. So all of us do web deployment. All of us know what is web deployment, and there are some enhancements to that. And NuGet integration, something that is quite new from Microsoft side. How many of you know what is a NuGet? Okay, one of you know, great. So NuGet is a set of packages that are available on the internet, neatly customized and available for download from a single location called nuget.org, and that is actually owned by Microsoft, and you will find a lot of scripts, templates and plugins available there where you can go and download it there. Very good example is jQuery. jQuery keeps getting updated so frequently that we can't really wait for next version of Visual Studio to start using the new version of jQuery. When we shipped VS 2010, jQuery was 1.3.1. It's now 1.5.2, I believe. That's the version that runs there. So those kind of libraries keep getting updated frequently, and we get to put all of this in a place called NuGet. Similarly, Modernizer that we'll talk about in a while. So integration with NuGet is also a new feature, and there are a few more things which I will just mention. IntelliSense for HTML5. I think Sandeep covered a little bit about this HTML5 IntelliSense. Video tag IntelliSense, input type tag IntelliSense, and also validation for HTML5, etc. Entity Framework design and enhancements. Probably will tell now because I will do the other parts as a demo. Entity Framework has been there for some time now. How many of you use Entity Framework here? Okay. It's actually very good stuff. If you are working on .NET 2.0, you don't get to use this because you are traditionally with the SQL data reader, data adapter model of working with ADO.NET classes, or you are probably using enterprise library for doing the data application block. Right? But with .NET 3.5 SP1 and further, we gave this entity framework, which is a new set of APIs for working with .NET in a class-based approach. You don't have to really directly write data array, data adapter, all this stuff there, right? So that's something that's shipped with. So what's the enhancements that are there? Enhancement is that if you are creating entity framework-based applications earlier, and if there are more than 100 tables, entity framework designer becomes very slow earlier. And now what we have done is actually we have made it a little faster from SP1. IntelliTrace for 64-bit machines. How many of you know IntelliTrace? Okay, not much. WebPI integration. WebPI, web platform integration. Okay, web platform installer. How many of you know? Web platform installer. Okay, one of you know. So I'll show probably all these things. It's much easier than what I talk about. IIS Express. So why is this IIS Express newly coming there? So if you remember VS 2005 and earlier days, you had Visual Studio and IIS. That's all. If you create a new application in 2003 .NET, if you create a new application, desktop application will run as is. Web application will be only able to create it on IIS. Somebody else will configure it for you, correct? The challenges were two. One is that IIS will be running only on machines where you have admin privileges, okay? And if you are running a Windows XP Home Edition machine, you can't do that because it does not have IIS enabled for Home Edition. You have to have a professional edition of Windows XP, number one. Number two is that many of the organizations actually block admin rights for the end users or the developers because they think that these people will go and publish something unknowingly. They only give access to things which you work with currently. So we gave with VS 2005 something called as ASP.NET Development Server that runs out of the box. If you just hit F5, it will open the Cassini web server that comes in the bottom, right? So the Cassini web server is something that ships default with VS 2005, 2008 and 2010. In fact, in 2010 VS, if you want to create a new web application on IIS, it's a little hard. You have to go and change it manually. By default, it will only create it on the IIS Cassini web server, right? But what is this IIS Express then? So Cassini has got its own benefits. It can run on machines where you don't require admin privileges. It can run on low-end configuration machines. It can run on a per user machine. It is not shared by other users. Like if you are running your application on Cassini on your machine, the other person cannot access your application using IP address or machine name. You can't do that. It's only available as a local port for you to use, right? And you can't do things like SSL development, secure socket layer development. You can't do things like authentication configuration or authorization configuration. You can't do those things there in ASP.NET Development Server. IIS Express can be installed in multiple ways. One is that you can directly go to IIS.NET site and install it from there, and you can also install it from the web platform installer. It's much more powerful than Cassini because you can do much more things which are not possible in Cassini, and it installs on Windows XP and above. And the main difference you see here is that earlier we had this OS version, IIS version tie-up. Windows XP 5.1, Windows Server 2003, IIS 6, Windows Server 2008, IIS 7, 2008 R2, IIS 7.5, correct? Windows Vista, IIS 7, Windows 7, 7.5. That kind of tight integration was there earlier, but if you are running Windows XP also, the IIS Express version that you install is actually IIS 7.5 Express Edition, which means on a low-end machine or an older machine, you get to use the latest IIS configuration. And when you go to deploy it, you actually have a similar place there. You are developing it for IIS 7.5 and go and deploy it there. How many times you have faced this problem? You work on Windows XP, IIS 5 doesn't have many features to go and configure on the IIS configuration. You just have to develop everything there, create a virtual directory, develop it there. The moment you go to IIS and deploy it there are much more things you have to go and manage there, right? Application pool management, which was not there earlier. And then you have to manage things like MIME type, handlers, etc. These were not there locally because IIS 5.1 didn't have these features locally. So you develop everything nicely, go and deploy it there. What do you get? Page cannot be displayed. Did you get that? You should have got it if you are deployed any application there, because IIS 6 is actually totally different. IIS 7 is totally different there. Even the UI is different there. But with IIS Express, you actually get to use the same IIS 7.5 on your local machine, but for free and on low-end configuration machines, right? And finally, it can be installed along with IIS and Cassini web server. So what are the features? It's based on the IIS 7.5 code base, which means it's the same IIS that runs there locally. It does not have a UI as such. It doesn't have a console UI kind of thing that you see there, but it actually has certain things that you can do. It enables a full web server feature set, SSL, URL relate, you can do all these things there. It can be used for web forms or MVC application. How many of you are web form developers here? Web forms? Okay, many of you. MVC? Okay, 2 of you. And what do the rest do? Desktop applications? Okay, great. So integrated with Visual Studio, it's like you can use project, use IIS Express, that's all you need to do, right? So developing with IIS Express, right? Quickly we'll start doing it there. So in fact, I can use Visual Web Developer Express also. Okay, yes. Okay, okay, I agree. So this is installing my Wi-Fi, so just hang on for that. It's not Visual Studio. Let me open Visual Studio 2010. So I am running here Visual Studio 2010 SP1, Service Pack 1, and I have also installed something called as MVC3 update for MVC basically. So I am running MVC3 and MVC3 tools update also. That's why I am getting some features there. But if you just install Visual Studio 2010 and SP1, you will get what I showcase currently. Right? For example, if you create a new project, and let's say that we want to create it in web application, not MVC, right? The type, so the name for the project is Web Forms Still Exists. Good name? Okay. So web application, framework is 4.0 version, and I want to just create this there. So notice that I actually is creating it on the Cassini web server by default. Even if I say file new project and give the location as c:/inetpub www root and give a name, it will still create only on Cassini. It will not go and create it on the local IIS. So this is running there, this is fine. Web form still exists is coming up there for us. Let's run this and see what's happening. Let me also run the utility for zooming. Okay, so close, finish. I don't want any optimizer. Cancel, okay. So this runs fine, so it opens up the default site that you see here. Like when I run this, you can see that it opens the default ASP.NET page, and you can see that it's actually using the Cassini web server here. Okay, this one that you see here is actually Cassini web server. It uses a local port for development purposes. Home page is out there. All sorts of issues with this. Connect, okay. Authenticated, connecting, okay. So this is the application that you see here. This is the default web application. Nothing I've done. I have not done anything here, right? So this is running on the Cassini web server. That's what you see here. And when I go here and click here and say F4, I don't get anything to do here. F4 is basically your project properties for IIS, right? Because this is running on the Cassini web server. It's a development server. It doesn't have anything to do here on the UI. So quickly, when you jump back to the project and once you install IIS Express, you get this menu item called as Use IIS Express. Okay. So once you choose this, it will ask you a couple of questions. As always with Visual Studio, do you want to configure it? Yes, it's done. Right. And now when you run this, you won't notice a change yet, because if you see here in the bottom, it still, let me open this and show you. It still is using something similar to development server. The box that you see on your left, left, right, okay, left, second row, that is the IIS Express icon that runs there. It actually is running out of IIS Express, and what it does is that it gives you a few more additional things. So you can right click and then see show all applications and see what are all the applications running on your machine. So you can run applications and find out applications based on your process and all these things there. But the fun part is not here. The fun part is when you close this and go to this project and hit F4, I am seeing a lot more options now, right? Are you able to see the difference? Yeah. So I can set few things here. I can say that by default anonymous authentication is enabled. I want to disable anonymous authentication. Okay. And I want to enable Windows authentication for my machine here. So I can set these properties right from here, and when I build and run this, what does it do? It is identifying the request and then finding out the permissions for your request and looking out what is the best way to serve the content now. So just waiting for a while. Let me close all these things. What does it do? Error. It goes to the login page because we said that anonymous is disabled and we said that Windows authentication is there. So store the page but get it authenticated. Right? So it automatically picks up the login URL from here. So you can set authentication from here, right from this place. So that you can do, and let me revert back to the old settings. And the other good thing is the SSL enabled property. So many times we do this, right? SSL certificate development. People ask you, manager says, one change request comes from the customer, we need to have an SSL URL. And the manager happily goes on vacation. You sit in the home and what do I do now? SSL. Go to the internet and search SSL download and all. You give Hajar certificate links, but you don't know what to do locally. You can go and deploy it there on the IIS, it will work there, but how do I test it locally? There is no way you can do it, right? You need to have self-signed certificates to do that there. So SSL development again is fun with IIS Express. You can go ahead and say that I want to use SSL enabled here, and now I see I get two URLs, HTTP and HTTPS URL, right? So when I use HTTP, it works fine. So when it run by default, it will use HTTP, but I can also use HTTPS, saying that I want to use HTTPS URL and run this. Let me just run this and open once again. Open once again the IIS Express and show all this thing. So you can see that it's actually running out of two instances. One is the HTTP and this HTTPS URL. So I can right click again here and say show all applications, and I can go and click on this HTTPS URL. It will alert you because IE9 thinks that it is a self-signed certificate which is having no authenticity. That's why alerting you, but if you can, for development purposes you can just say continue to the website. Huh? Don't do this when you are visiting ICICI.com site. Okay? It's clearly not recommended, right? So locally you can go and say that I want to go to the place there. So this is actually telling all the error, but that you can ignore, but it's actually having a SSL URL locally available there. So this installs self-signed certificates onto your PC that will be allowing you to do SSL development locally, right? So that is the main thing I wanted to showcase on the IIS Express. Primarily you can do it for, so how do I enable this there? I already showed you one way. If you don't want to use IIS Express, you can always say use Visual Studio Development Server. It will go back to the old settings. So now when you go back to here and hit F4, it's the sad old UI that you see here, right? How do I set it? How do I do it on IIS? Probably you will be knowing it already. If you want to run this on IIS, you can set the properties and go and say, I want this to run on web, I want this to run on local IIS web server, and you can also say create virtual directory. Now this is actually running out of IIS. That's just, I want to show it to you, that's all. It has nothing to do with IIS Express. It's now running out of IIS. You have to do this step even if you create it on inetpub WP root path there. So that is done. So web forms exist solution is done. So we kind of showcased how to do this there. You can do it permanently also. If you want to just use ASP.IIS Express permanently, you can say that go to tools, options, and go to projects and solution, web projects. You can say that use IIS Express as a default for file new based projects. Okay, you can set this there at the default level also. Right. So that is the IIS Express part. Any questions on this so far? So actual IIS runs as a very similar to this. Actual IIS has got much more configuration options. You can go and do URL mapping, you can go do MIME type mapping, you can go and do virtual directory creation, subdirectory creation, you can do all those things there. This one does not have a UI, it only has a property window, that's all. So you can go and do all full-fledged activities of deployment on original IIS, the normal IIS, and you can do much more things there. You can go and configure logging, audit security and all this. You can run commands, commandlets and find out what are all happening in a request. Those things you can't do it in IIS Express. So IIS Express is clearly for development purposes, not for deployment purposes. So if you are running IIS Express, it means that you're going to use only for local development, not for production. You can't use it for production because it cannot handle more requests. It can only handle a couple of, probably hundreds of requests, that's all. It cannot handle more requests than the full-fledged IIS kind of thing. Okay, so that's the IIS Express part. Somebody asked a question, so I have goodies also. Can I have a volunteer here? Okay, you can collect this once you're back here. So SQL CE. So again, SQL CE has been there for some time now. All of us know SQL CE. It is there as a product for almost 3 to 4 years now. But SQL CE tooling support for Visual Studio was not there. It's still not there until you install SP1. What is SQL CE useful for? So all of us use SQL Server or SQL Express for development, right? We use it regularly. SQL Server, full-fledged SQL product, no issues, you can do all the things there. SQL Express, works fine, but when you want to go and do things like production environment, SQL Express is probably not there, and it still runs as a service on the end user machine. If you look at SQL Express, it runs as a service. Both SQL Server and SQL Express runs as a service on your machine there. But what if you want to have a simple file-based database? Simple database which can be file-based API. It does not run a service, it does not require admin privileges, nothing. And it should be just Xcopy deployable. Just copy and go and deploy, it should run there, that's all, right? So SQL C is a free embedded database engine. It gets downloaded and then runs as a flat file. There is no installation required for it. It works with existing .NET APIs, which means you don't have to learn something new. All of us use either ADO.NET or Link to SQL or Entity Framework. It works the same, with the current one. You can design it right from Visual Studio, deploy it with Xcopy. So you can just use Visual Studio for creating databases and then go and deploy it also right from there. And let's see the development part of this. So let me close this, and this is Visual Studio that we have there. So add new item, and from 2010 you have this new feature called as search for templates, right? Have you seen this? And when I say data, I also get something called as SQL Server Compact 4.0 local database. And when I go ahead and say, give this a name, products, right? Or my shop.sdf. This is asking if you want to create it in the app data folder, which is okay because it's app data means it's your local database folder structure. And once you do that, it is creating the SDF file for you, right? Next step is obviously to double click on this. This will open the Server Explorer like what we do in databases. Are you all with me so far? Yeah? So you can double click on this, it will open this Server Explorer for the shop database table here, and you can right click here and say create tables right from here, right? So you can go and give this name products, right? So I'm doing database development right from Visual Studio now, right? So I can give this a name, say product ID, and this is going to be of type integer, and this will not allow nulls. This will be a unique key and a primary key as well. And this will have an identity increment set to true, okay? And then next is basically product name, which will be nvarchar, that's fine. Price will also be nvarchar, that's fine for me. I've created a table for myself, right? So how do I see this table now? I can go to this table, right click and then say, let me see if it's connected first of all. Refresh, it's connected. From here I can say table, go to products and then say show table data. Show table data basically opens up the UI for entering your database there. So I can go and enter product name here saying Visual Studio. Price for this is like some 5,000 rupees. I don't know if that's the price outside, but you get a discount today. SQL Server, I think it will be more than that definitely. Is it okay? 2,500, okay. Expression, some 1,000 rupees, right? So I just entered 3 sample data here. So far nice, everything works fine, right? Database is created, everything looks there, good. And from the UI perspective, I can do much more things here. So let's do one thing. Let's go and add a models folder here. So I'm going by the typical model view controller part of development. So models, and in the model, I want to create a data model for my application. So add new item, and ADO.NET you can choose. I think if you have done entity framework development, you will know how this works, right? You create an ADO.NET entity data model for this and click on add. This will give you options for connecting to your database. So it's asking you whether you want to generate it from database or you want to use an empty model, okay? So click next, and it gives you multiple options. It also gives you the shop.sdf file there. There is no connection string required here because it is actually a local database, right? And just click on next, and it retrieves your database table information and finds out that there is only one table called as products. So finish, it now generates the entity model. If you have not seen this, what it is doing is currently, it is taking up your existing database table schema and trying to find out whether it can generate classes for it. The way Entity Framework or NHibernate or Link to SQL works is, it takes up database tables and generates classes, so that you don't have to worry about persistence, you don't have to worry about looping records, etc. You get a .NET based API for working with your database tables. That's the whole idea, right? So this is done, this is created, the model is created now. Now I can go to my default page and say I want to add a grid control here, and just say I want to have a grid control which is of ID grid view 1, and rest of stuff I can configure from the UI. So go to the grid view and point it to use a new data source. And this new data source is going to be coming from entity model, not just SQL Server. It's an entity model that we created there. And this will be using entity model from shop entities, right? So let's just build it once more. Probably it's not ready yet. Okay, it's now ready. And configure data source. And this will come from shop entities. And this will be using an entity set called products. If you want to filter something, you can enable inserts and updates and click on finish. I want to enable paging, enable selection also, and sorting if you require. And I want to just put a little bit of coloring for this machine, right? So this is done now. So let's try running this. So what I did is basically added a grid view control and bound it to my SDF file there. So it's now showing up the data here. So I can do sorting based on ID, product name, and do all those things there. Okay, simple stuff there. Now questions on SQL CE. What all it supports? It supports production. Definitely you can go to production. It is a file-based API, so it doesn't require you to run as a service. It is free, so you can just deploy it there. You can just Xcopy deploy this. It will go and sit on the server. If you are just using simple databases, you don't need to worry about purchasing SQL Server. And it will also be an excellent lookup value table, right? It can support up to 4 GB of data, which means it's quite big, right? It can support up to 4,000 concurrent transactions, concurrent users transactions, which means not 4,000 users, but 4,000 connection string pool, right? Beyond that, it may not work, right? It's free. You can just go copy and deploy it there. It works fine, just fine. That's all, right? Excellent database, free for use, and same .NET APIs, ADO.NET, etc. works fine for this, right? The main difference between SQL CE and SQL Express is that SQL Express runs as a service on the end user machine. So if you deploy your machine to a server who is like a third-party server, you should ask that guy if he is installing SQL Express on the machine. You should ask him if you are running SQL Express on your machine. Otherwise, you can't use the SQL Express there. Here, you don't have to depend on him. You just have to copy and publish your application. It works fine just there. Okay. Ideal for many of the applications that people create these days. Any questions on this so far? I'll come there. Yeah. Sorry. First question. Add-on in the sense? So the question is like, how do I migrate data, right, between these two, right? So as of now, we are working on a migration tool. The migration tool will help you to move your database from SQL CE to SQL Server. It's not yet out there, but it should be out very shortly. That's our plan. You have a migration tool where you can just run it from SQL CE to SQL Server. It just runs without any issues, right? And what else? Other question you asked? It does not support stored procedures currently. It supports tables and views, not yet stored procedures, not yet there. So 2 more questions. So can I have a volunteer here? Okay, who's the volunteer? Okay. Yeah, 1 more question. Yes, 1 for that person who's sitting there, and 1 for this. Here and here. Yeah, yeah. Same. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can create relational tables. Yes. There is no tool available as such because this is storing as a flat file and that is storing as a server relational database. No, there is no tool available currently. There might be third party. Which one? I don't know about the integration part of sync services. I don't know about that. Which one? Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Just one question.
Yeah.
It's not about CE in specific. Entity data model thing that you were talking about from Visual Studio, right?
Yes.
Can it generate that model for OLAP databases?
So not yet there currently because Entity Framework by default uses SQL Server or it can. There's a plugin by Oracle released recently for Entity Framework for Oracle that works there currently. OLAP not yet there. There is one more model it supports. I'll show in the last session. I'll show it to you in the last session. So web deployment tool. So web deployment tool. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And production kind of deployment, like application server as right now we will use Gopher and
no, you can't do that because it requires access to the files. No.
Yeah. So can we modify that one in the configuration file and can I deploy the database source on this different system, making
So,
it as a
no,
server?
no, you can't. So if you want to go for production and be able to run it on other servers and all, I think you should migrate to SQL Server or SQL Express in that case there. If you can attach it and publish it as is with your application, then SQL C will work there. You can't go and change, there is no configuration there. If you go to the config file, there is no configuration path there.
No, because the question is like if when we go for a hosting kind of environment,
Yeah,
the space what is available may be a less one.
yeah.
So I can go for a different.
This is a flat file compressed database. This is actually much smaller than what you think of. And this works only when it's with the application. Otherwise, it doesn't work there. And that's the whole idea behind this application. Many products look for databases like this. Many products, because they want some lookup values and all the references. No, that's what it is currently. So it can't have a connection string path like you mentioned.
So can we inspect anything in the future and does it support the stored procedures?
Future, not yet clear there currently. Clearly not yet there, but in the future. Yeah. Yeah. Which one? So the recommended approach is using entity framework, right? You can create an entity model and use it as a class for retrieving all the objects there. You can do a configuration like this, or you can use entity model and use it by programmatically. You can access everything. Like for example, this one created a model 1.edmx, right? That would have created a shop entities. Using shop entities, you can actually query everything.
Even if I use entity model like link here or something I use, there also I specify my connection string.
That is only because your database is sitting somewhere else. Once you have a
I'm using .mdf
right,
instead of SDS.
okay,
So I don't specify the exact, I say .sql express
yeah.
and the name.
Yeah, that you can do, but I don't think you can change the path and all there. One second, hold on. Let me just see what it does.
Yeah, path it will automatically pick up from the.
Yeah, yeah. App data, basically app data, right? It's just app data there. So app data you can't specify for other missions because you'll say root app data, it will look in the same project.
Just open the web.config one.
It will say the same thing. It will say the app data. It's the same thing.
It says there, right? SQL Express.
SQL Express is the default one that created. It's basically for your membership API and all. If you remove that also, it still works. This connection string is irrelevant. This is actually for the membership API. If you run the application and you want to create users and all, that uses the membership API.
What is the exact difference between MDF and SDF?
So that's what I'm saying, no? MDF is what file?
SQL Express.
SDF is a SQL Express runs as a service on the background. SQL Express, it runs as a service. If you run configuration tools here, SQL Server configuration tools, here you will
So
find
you
that.
need that tool installed on the server basically.
Yeah. It needs to be installed on server. So this one, SQL services, you can see that there is a SQL Server and there is a SQL Express running there, right? But there is no SQL C anywhere here because it's a flat file database. It does not run as a service there. Good, okay. So all this is good. Yeah, go ahead. You have a question? Nobody, okay. All this is good. What about deployment now? How do I go and deploy this application on the production there, right? So when you go to deployment, there are two options. One is you can do an Xcopy deployment, which I talked about, right? Just copy everything and go it there. Or you can do a file page web setup development, where you can go and say file new web setup project and create everything there. But mostly web projects are actually done as a Xcopy deployment, okay? When you do Xcopy deployment, not all the files you require are in the GAC of the end users or the server that you are hosting it there. If you go for a third-party hoster, you won't be having things like SQL C, MVC3, etc. He'll only have .NET installed, probably .NET 3.0 or 4.0 installed. That's all maximum. And he won't be willing to install whatever you want to install on his server because it's a shared hosting server, right? Web deployment 2.0 tries to simplify this for web developers. What does it do? You can use web deployment tool and actually create a dependent set of assemblies packaged into your folder and just allow it to do Xcopy deployment so that you don't have to rely on the end user machine configuration where you deploy the application there. Example, if I don't have SQL Express, what happens in SQL C in the end user machine, what happens? Right, I can deploy this there, but still I need the SQL Server DLL files that cannot be missed on the end user machine there, right? So from VS to SP1, you have this new option called as add deployable dependencies, right? So what does it do? Right click and then say add deployable dependencies. It tells you these are all probably things you don't have on the end user machine. One is the ASP.NET web pages with the Razor syntax, right? The other one is actually SQL Server Compact Edition, which is not there. So we are not using ASP.NET web pages currently. You can ignore that part. You can just say I want to use SQL Server Compact, right? And click on OK. It's doing a bunch of things in here. You won't be able to see it because I took a screen snap here, but it's done that now. If you see here, what it does is that it found out that this is a 64-bit machine and also copied all the DLLs required for the SQL Server CE. So now it got all the SQL CE Compact DLL everything required to run this on the production. So you can just copy this, build this and deploy it on the production, it just works fine, that's all. It will not require you to install anything on the end user machine or the hosting machine. Right? It will do it for any assembly you do. If you are using third party assemblies, it will still find out and add it to the DLL there. A lot of people come to me and ask, I used some third party assembly, free text box. I use this crystal reports and all, it's not on the production, what do? You can do add deployable dependencies, it will find out all the deployable assemblies and go and pick it up there. Right? And it will just go to, yeah?
It works from the internet or locally?
It works on the locally. It finds out what are all the local available assemblies and then picks it up there. That is there, correct. If you do a setup project, it is there. But not many hosters allow you to do setup projects these days. You have to just give them the files, they'll go and deploy it there. Because setup means it's going to install a version of the assembly on the server. They don't want you to do those things there. Setup is good if you are doing it on our own deployment. When we go and deploy it to our customer, we can say, I want to create a setup file and all, that's fine. Then it will do this. But if you do a web Xcopy deployment, earlier the problem always was that DLL files will not be there on the end user machine. It will not be in the GAC. So when you put a DLL like SQL Server C, it will go and look into the assembly and find out if it is there on the GAC. It will not there, it will go to the bin folder. It's not there, it will throw error.
So this is only for the web application or any other?
I haven't seen for desktop application. Let's try that also, no? It should be the same because it's just a menu item, right? Say for example, we are using SQL new project and wanted to create a desktop application, say Windows Forms application, and so here we'll just say add new item and say data and try and use SQL CE here. I'm just using it, I'm not creating any tables, just for demonstration I'm using it. It's not sub project type, okay, the database will put data, okay, that's fine. Deploy it here and right click and then I don't think it's there. It's only for the web projects.
Only for web.
It's there, it's created there, I know that, but it's not showing for the add deployable dependencies. For the web only. Good point.
On DLLs, does it generate the, suppose if I add some COM DLLs there, and we click on this add deployable dependencies, is it required to register in the production server?
So two things, one is that if you put it in a bin folder, no problem at all. Okay, if you put it into a bin folder, like common DLLs, you generally put it in the bin folder. You don't require this option because anyway it's in the bin folder there.
Okay.
When you use things like SDF file, which does not have anything on the bin folder, right? It does not have anything on the bin folder. That is when you need to generate all the DLLs required there. Like MVC. MVC, when you create a file new MVC project, if you go to the bin folder, it will not have references for MVC project DLLs and all there because it's all part of the GAC. But on the production, it may not be on the GAC because it's not installed there, right? That's when it's very useful. Common DLLs you can put into the bin folder, it will work fine. It's available for 2010 VS and Visual Studio Web Developer Express Edition SP1. That's what you see, new add deployable dependencies. It identifies and bundles all the dependent assemblies. That's what we saw there. Current options are SQL C and web pages. These are the two things which are not there prominently on the hosting machines, right? So you can just right click and deploy it there. It does not work on Azure currently because Azure does not support SQL CE currently. Okay, if you try to deploy it on Azure, it may not work, but it works very much on your other hosting providers. If they're using Windows Server, it works perfectly fine there. Azure by nature does not support SQL CE currently, so it won't work on Azure, but it will work on all other hosting providers. All right, NuGet integration, right? I talked about NuGet, right? I already told the scenario for you. NuGet is basically when a lot of library assemblies keep getting updated frequently, but it's very hard for Visual Studio to actually keep in pace with that because Visual Studio has a long life cycle of product, like 2 years once there. Even then people say we are releasing Visual Studio frequently. Do you agree? Do you see that? Right? But if you see the community out there, the open source community or other shared communities, they actually release it quite faster than what we do. 3 months once, 4 months once, they release the new library versions there. So NuGet is an attempt to have a common repository of all the available assemblies or all the available scripts, packages, etc., where you can just go ahead and add it to your Visual Studio whenever you require based on your need there. So what does NuGet? Sorry about that, I just cancelled it there. So NuGet is basically official open source packages from MS, right? This is basically the package library. There is a site called Codeplex, that's a different thing totally, but this is a package library. It's neatly packaged for download. If you say right click and then download, it downloads it for you, whatever you require. It can be installed from the tools or command line that I'll show it to you. It keeps projects updated. Like I said about jQuery, right? jQuery keeps updating so frequently that it's very hard for you to wait for Visual Studio to ship it along with it, right? So how do I see that now? So let's close this. Let's close both the applications now and come to the new world of MVC. So again, I'm using VS 2010 Service Pack 1, and so I just went ahead and created a file new MVC project here. You will see more of MVC demos in Sharanya's session, next session, but I'll just quickly go through some of these things. So MVC3 web application, and click on OK. So this one that you see here is the MVC3 template I'm using. If you install MVC3, you will get this as well as MVC2 in your Visual Studio, right? Okay, so when you click on OK, this is something that new you are seeing, if you have not seen earlier, is that earlier we used to give MVC2 intranet application, MVC2 internet application, all this, but now we made it into one menu. When you say file new MVC application, you can either do these things. It can be an empty application, or it can be an intranet or an internet application. Intranet means it will enable by default Windows authentication. Internet means it will look for you to use the forms based authentication. And empty means it will not create controllers and all, it will just leave a blank skeleton site there, right? And the other thing that you will see new is the Razor engine. Right, we'll talk about Razor in the next session much more, and also it has this use HTML5 semantic markup template there, right? But when you leave the defaults and click OK, it creates an MVC site there. So I'm sure some of you are aware of MVC here. MVC model view controller, model database, view representation, controller is your the place where you actually find out what you want to do there, right? Example, in web forms, I put a grid view controller. The grid is the controller and the view. Database is the model. It can be edu.NET or it can be the entity framework there. In an MVC controller, there is no grid. There is HTML markup, which is the view. There is controller, which is what generates all the values, and there is the model, which is the database there. As simple as that. So earlier, it's an MVP pattern. Web forms is an MVP pattern. This is an MVC pattern, right? So if you want to create the M, which is model, you can do it from here. It can either be a database that you create or connect to, like I said earlier, I just can say configure new database, you can go and create it there, or it can also be a class, right? It can be a class also where you can say that this is going to be person class, right? I'll try and increase the font size. I know that it's not that visible. Better now? Yeah. So this is a class person that I've created here, and I want some properties for this class. Say I can type prop and get properties. Do you know that? So that's a new feature in 2010. So you can just say, let me just minimize all these things. Let it be an integer, it be ID. Again, I can do a prop, and this will be a string, this will be first name, and this will be string, this will be last name, right? So 3 properties basically. So this looks like very much to what I'm going to show in the last session also, which is code first. Basically, in Entity Framework 4.1, you don't have to depend on database first. You can create a class file and generate from database, but we'll not go there now. We'll just see what scaffolding does for me. So here it's good, and one thing I want to showcase here is that packages.config file, right? You see that these packages are by default installed. jQuery, jQuery.vsdoc, which is the IntelliSense for jQuery. jQuery validation, Entity Framework, and Modernizer. These are all new features in SP1. So SP1, when you create a new MVC project, it will include Modernizer script library, right? So let's do one thing. Let's by default run this without worrying about the person's class. Let's run this now. This is the default site that you see when you create an MVC application, right? Okay. How do you test it for different browsers? Let's say I'm opening up something called as the Expression Web 4 Super Preview. This is a free tool for 90 days. You can download it and see. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to stop this page and go to Visual Studio, and here when I go to the views and go to shared view, layout.cshtml is very similar to your master page in web forms. All of you know that, right? So I can here go and say that this is going to be commented, which means I'm commenting out Modernizer. Right? Modernizer is added by default in Visual Studio. I've commented it out, and when I now run this, it opens a home page, but when I go to expression preview, I can say that I want to see this in IE6. How many of you use IE6 yet? How many of you are in IE6 yet? How many of you use browsers? Okay, many of you, right, great. IE6, okay, few of you. Sometimes it might be because your organization is still mandating IE6, right? But you see that how it looks on IE6 and how it looks on a different browser. For example, I want to see it in IE9. This is actually running in IE9, this is in IE6. Clearly IE6 is looking bad, right? Because CSS is not update and all those things there. You can check it for different browsers. This Expression Web Super Preview is a free tool, you can download it. You can check it for different browsers. For example, you can check it for Firefox, Chrome and all this stuff there on how it looks in different browsers, right from here. So this is what it shows there in how does it look in Firefox. Right? Just takes a while to download it there because Firefox is trying to find out the proxy and all. It looks better in Firefox, but IE6 clearly doesn't stand there, right? But Modernizer, I think Raj talked a lot about Modernizer in the morning. Modernizer is a script library which allows you to make your sites look better in older versions of browsers like IE6, right? So when I uncomment this modernizer.js and use the same expression web preview, super preview trial, and run this on IE6, this is now using Modernizer because I've uncommented it from the pages there, right? So looks better. This looks like IE6 looking better, right? So clearly IE6 is not there up to the mark in terms of where it should be. So if you're using IE6 and if you have a chance, you should upgrade to IE8 or IE9 to the minimum. Right? IE10 is in platform preview. IE8 to the minimum or IE9 if you want to get the best experience of what you saw today morning, HTML5, Canvas and all the things there. But Modernizer will to some extent help you to do things better in other browsers, older browsers. So this is something new in MVC3 and SP1. Once you install it, you get a Modernizer library here. So Modernizer is fine, but what about other packages? Like for example, when I say right click, I get this new template called as add library package reference. What does it do? It allows me to go and find out from NuGet what are all the available libraries. Like for example, you can see that by default Entity Framework is installed on my machine. Entity Framework 4.1 code first. I also have jQuery installed, I also have jQuery validation installed and all the things. Modernizer is also installed by default. These are all the packages running on your machine for your projects there. You can go to online and search for new products if they are available any. Like it's now currently trying to retrieve what are all the new libraries available from any page or from the NuGet's official package source. Right? It's trying to find out. These are all available currently. It says Entity Framework is already installed, jQuery is there, and there are many more things like nhibernate, etc. Right? You can go and install it right from here. Right click, add library package reference. Go online, you can find all the new libraries available for your project. For example, Elma. Elma is actually a very good logging tool. Excellent. It's a very good logging tool. You can go and find out what are all the errors happening in your site there. You can go and install those things from here. Not just that, you can also install it from your command line utility. For example, NuGet also has this package manager console. This is something that's quite new. Probably I'll increase the font size here. Right? Package manager console that will allow you to go and run commandlets from your package manager. For example, what I want to do is MVC by default will create a structure. If you create a class like this and right click and then say add new controller, you will get to see a lot of this in my demos also in the next few sessions. Add new controller will automatically generate controller, views, everything for you, right? But it will do it in a format where it has a class file and a controller and a view file. But there is also a new template I will call as MVC scaffold. It's actually same thing, but it does in a different way. I'll talk about what different in a while. So I want to install this to my package there. So I can say install package. You can see that I could get IntelliSense there. Tab install package, right? And then say MVC scaffolding, right? What it's trying to do is that it's trying to go to NuGet library and installing it there for me. So for example, tomorrow if you want to implement something like a new version of Modernizer, you can go and install it from the package manager console right from here. This is now installed. It says that the packages.config file is changed because we have opened it, right? When I say yes, it added the scaffolding entry here, right? So once scaffolding entry is done, we can start doing scaffolding right from this PowerShell. Are you all able to see the screen here? Bottom, behind? How many don't care? Okay. Don't care? Okay, great. So here, from here you can actually start running your commandlets there. For example, you can either do one of these things. You can right click here and say add new controller, right? And then you can select what class you want to use and give the values, etc., and do that there. Or you can use the package manager console and say that do it from here. For example, once you install this, you can say scaffold, right? Scaffold, IntelliSense I'm getting here, and say controller, right? I want to create controller on the class called person, and I want to force it. If it's already existing, go ahead and override it there, right? It's now doing that there. What it's doing is it's actually scaffolding the people controller now. So it's creating the controller for me and the views for me. So if you're not aware of, MVC requires you to have a controller, view, and a model. Model you will create easy, controller you will create add directly controller, but view is something you have to generate manually. You have to write all the HTML there. Kind of going back to ASP days, where you have to write all the HTML yourself there, but it's much better because you have full control of what you do in your site there. So now what it's doing currently is that it's actually installed the stuff here. It's done there. So basically it's come back to me. Here it has done all the work for me. It's done a people folder, it's done create, details, edit and all, it's created there now, and also it's created the controller for me, right? I can actually run this as is, and this will just open the home page because we don't do anything there, but when you go to the people controller, what does it do? It gives me an option to create people here, right? Yeah, you can create, edit and do all the things there, right? I'll talk about much more about this in the next session of mine, but this one gave me this there. But the power is not here. You can actually right click, add controller, it will do the same job for you, right? Where it's more powerful is that, what happens if I go and change this class file here? For example, I want to add one more field saying that public string age get set, right? If you don't use the package manager controller, you have to either delete all the views and go and create it again, like add new controller. But what will happen is you will lose any customization you made manually, right? Or you can do and go and enter this manually. You can open the view and enter this one field manually. I did it for my own application, which I'm working on currently. Last 2 weeks back, I didn't know about this. I had to manually add a field in every view there, and there are 5 views for every controller. So 10 controllers, dead. So here I add this age here. So what I can do now is that I can go to the package manager console and say, let me dock it back to the Visual Studio. I can go to package manager console and say, I want to rerun this, right? Controller, the controller is there. I want to force this again. So scaffold controller and run this again. It says that there's a context file already there, but it's doing all the other works there, right? So it's now recreated this file with me, age there. So that's what it's doing currently. A lot of work, it's doing a lot of work in the background actually. It's a PowerShell script that's running there. It's doing a lot of work in the background of regenerating the HTML for you, and also not regenerating, basically adding that age there. Right, so it's done now, right? So when I now run this and navigate to people, right? I think something has changed because it's code first. Let's just run once again and run this. It's probably expecting me to use, okay, it's just manually update, okay, because we created a database already now, that's why it's shouting. So let's say we go and delete this database, and I'll cover this part of what you should do when you do this database in a while. Say for example, in this case, it went and created database in my program files, SQL Server, SQL Express here. It went and created this database right here. I'll talk about it in a while. Okay, it's not able to do it, fine. I'll come to that later. So you can do this, and what if I don't want to just do this change? I want to also use repository pattern, where I want to have my classes running as a repository and do this there. So I can also do that. I can say force and also add this thing called as repository here, right? So earlier you saw that it was just creating it as a class file, view, model, right? Now what it's doing currently is that it's creating it as a repository file for you. So all of you know repository pattern? Some of you know repository pattern here? Okay. One person knows? Okay, one person knows. Repository pattern is basically separating your logic. For example, if you create a normal class file from model, what it means is that you are tightly integrating to your model data, underlying model there. But if you create a repository class and then call it from that, you are actually eliminating the data access layer and the business layer from it, in between that, right? So what it did currently is that it went and created a file called as person repository for me, right? And then it also created all these files there. So you can see that it's now using repository instead of using the direct class. So you can run all this from the, and it's actually removed all the old entries and created a new entry for me using repository there. This package console is very helpful if you want to do stuff like this. Like if you want to change your entity model a little later, you want to change some things later, it's very handy for you to do it there. How do I install it? You can do the same thing. Right click, add library package reference, and you can go here and search online and say that I want to get the package manager. It will go and search and then give you the option for installing the package manager console there, right? Okay, let's go to official package source here and search for package. It just takes a while, so let's come back here. So this is what it's doing currently. It's going and finding out all the available things called as package and tries to find out if the NuGet command line install, it installs the command line utility, right? So this command line utility is again something new after you install Service Pack 1, very powerful to run your commandlets, etc. You can put repository pattern, you can put anything you want to do from the command line utility here. So we'll talk about more NuGet things like Twitter in the next session. Twitter, Facebook integration, we'll talk about it in the next session. HTML5 templates, I think Sandeep kind of covered it earlier. What does it do? Two things it does. If you are using web forms, it will give you IntelliSense for video tag, audio tag, etc. All these things there. If you are using MVC, by default, if you see this project which you created now, and when you go to the layout.cs HTML file here, you see that it's actually using the HTML5 template by default, right? Doc type HTML, head, div, header, nav, etc. are all new HTML5 elements. It's by default using all these new elements when you create a file new project in MVC3. Web forms, you can do only one thing. You can go and do validation for your meta tags, like your tags. Video, if you type, it will give you IntelliSense for the video tags, etc. Right? So that's what it does from the HTML5 perspective. We kind of already saw that there. So what are the other things it does? So one is that we saw many things there. One is that entity framework enhancements where you can go and do package manager for entity framework and NuGet and scaffolding. IIS Express, we can do that because IIS Express is useful for you to run as a local powerful IIS without being an administrator and do all configurations of SSL, authentication, etc. And also it has got the web deployment package manager which goes and picks out all the dependent assemblies and adds it to your project. And finally we also saw about SQL CE, which is like kind of powerful database for storing data as a file, flat file. So you can just go at there. So if you create a site, you can use HTML layout, you can create a SQL CE database, you can right click and then say add deployable dependencies, publish it there. It's like a full cycle that you can do there currently. If you are creating websites of your own and you don't require huge database like SQL Server, you can use SQL CE to best possible way, right? And whenever you want to use new library packages like Modernizer, all this new stuff that you want to use, you can use the Modernizer library or anything you want to use, you can use the NuGet package manager there. Not just this, it gives you a lot of things. For example, if you want to install Twitter control, you can just say install package and then say Twitter goodies. I'll leave this here now because we're going to show Twitter samples in the next session. But if you say Twitter goodies, it will try and install Twitter goodies there. If you want to say I want to install package, say I want to install Modernizer, it will try and install Modernizer if it's available there somewhere, right? It's doing all the stuff right from here. So how do I go here? One, you have to install the package manager console for once, and then you can just tools, options, and go and say I want to, tools, library package manager console, it will open up for you. You have to download and install it for once, right? These are some of the blogs of the team. Like for example, Visual Web Developer is the developer tools team blog. IIS Express team blog, that's what you see here. SQL CE, if you have any questions around SQL CE, you have this blog that's there here. And Web Deployment Tool team blog is on the MS Deploy blog address there currently, right? So if I want you to take three things back, one is the SQL CE support, which is there, where you can right click, create databases, files. If every application you should use a separate application pool. For .NET 2 application, use separate application pool. That's the best way to go about it.
Here IIS Express, it will solve?
IIS Express is no application pool concepts here. It's only local. Only when you go to IIS, actual IIS, you can create application pools.
How we will create that? Directly add application.
Right click, add application pool on the server.
Thanks.
Yeah, actually, I have a requirement here. Like, I have created. Let's assume I have created a database using an SQL Server Compact Edition, and now I want to maintain the data. Mean to say, there is a production issue. I wanted to maintain that one. How can I do that one? Like, can I open the database using an Management Studio, or what is the tool that I can use for opening it?
Which one? SQL CE.
Yeah,
Management Studio.
Management Studio. Okay, because the file is a flat file and it is in the database.
Right, right.
It is in the application server along with
right.
the app. Now I have the Management Studio in my local system.
Then it's a problem. So if it's installed locally, it will be able to connect because there is no named pipe. Let others enjoy also, no? Let others also have SQL Enterprise Manager, free for everyone. And you better pay us, huh? That's the important part. It does all relational database. You can do all the things there, except for things like stored procedure supports everything there. I create a primary key only there, no? When I create a database table, product ID is a primary key there. Okay, yeah, go ahead. So web forms is a problem there. Web forms means it needs to be copied in all the machines that you deploy there. Like for example, how do you do it in web forms for application currently? You are deploying it in multiple places, right? That's the same case here with database also. Or you need to do load balancing that based on server. That doesn't do that. It doesn't do that currently. It doesn't do that currently. How do you do it in SQL Server currently? I have never tried that actually. Somewhere it's sitting there, so you can go and update it there, right? So that's why it is not a very powerful database for going and doing updates and all there. It's handy for lookup values. It's handy for creating some sample values and all. Maybe it's not good for transactional, high transactional databases there. Definitely not for banking applications, clearly. He also worried somebody can see the data, no?
Limit. After that, what we have to do? Suppose want to backup or something, can we clear it? Some data?
Once it reaches, let me know.
Sorry?
Actually, it is, so that's what you're working on currently. Migration tool is what you're working on currently, where you can migrate it from your SQL CE to SQL Server there. After 4 GB, it doesn't support currently. So better you be on SQL Server Express or SQL Server. That's the best thing to do. I think for lookup values, 4 GB is a lot actually. 4 GB is a lot for lookup values. That's why I'm saying it's not very high transactional database. It's not for that there. Facebook doesn't work definitely there. That kind of applications, it doesn't really work there. But it's good for lookup values and all this small. Many sites do it currently. Many sites, web developers currently have very simple database requirement. They don't need anything else there. They require some lookup values. They require some storage values, username, password. That's all they require. The rest of the stuff they do it using the UI. Correct? That's where it's very, very, very handy. You don't need to install or purchase SQL Server. That's my blog address. That's my Twitter handler. I kind of started early, so I will also end little early. Any more questions you have? Yeah. Yeah, it is faster. If you are tuning SQL Server very bad, it's faster. What do you tell? No. So you cannot do a comparison. It's not an apple-to-apple comparison. SQL Server has its own performance benefits, right? You have procedures which are pre-compiled. It runs there. Query execution plan is already tuned, etc. there. It's probably, you should compare it SQL Server with other databases, you can tell that there. But SQL C and SQL Server are two different databases totally. It's simpler for deployment. SQL Server, you have to generate scripts and expect that the end user also will have SQL Server installed on the machine and all the things there. SQL CE, you package it along with your application and go and publish it there, that's all. You cannot compare it in terms of performance. Sometimes SQL Server will actually be much better than SQL CE because of its powerful nature, yeah. Yeah. You can do that, no? So if you want to do lookup values, if you want to store some simple values, not high-end values, you can use SQL CE, and you can use SQL Server for other high transactional data access there. You can do combination of both there. You can use all three. SQL Express also you can use in this. Does it? How do I do that? I don't know. How do I do that? Object serialization? Okay. Probably, yeah.
In case of DDL changes, right? Assume that you put it in the production and there are DDL changes. So if I want to sync it, like if I want to change it with the like a new DDL changes, and I want to keep the existing data. How will I do it?
Yeah, so that is a challenge. If you make a DDL change and you don't have a backup store, there's a problem there currently. How do you do it in SQL Server currently?
Currently, like see what happens is we can like see we keep the temp tables and put the data back.
Right. So lookup value generation should be a script. That's all I can say. You need to have a lookup value generation as a part of the script that you enter there, right? Because even in SQL Server, if you do a DDL change, which means one column is going off, one column is adding, etc., right? It's a big problem always. You need to have the script should also have lookup values added to that. That's the only way you can do it. Yeah. Not yet there, not yet there. I wish I could do, but not yet there. So you can do that. Actually, Entity Framework will do that for you. In fact, it did it for me already. Actually, if I, you can. So I don't know how you will change it there. So Entity Framework internally uses this model of creating database dynamically. It uses the context name and creates database dynamically there. You can create multiple databases like that. As long as you change the context name, it will keep on changing it there. But through code, I don't know how to do that, but you can be able to do, because if Entity Framework is doing, you can do it as well. Yeah. Any other question? What do you want to do? Nothing. For what, MVC? Nothing. MVC, if you want to deploy MVC, for example, MVC3 is not supported on Azure, right? You can create a startup task and publish it there, or you can copy the DLLs that are used there in the application. Same way, no config change required, no machine config required at all, right? Typically, your MVC files are stored in C: program files, Microsoft ASP.NET, ASP.NET MVC, MVC3, that folder. That's where it's stored, right? But also there is a reference for the DLLs on the GAC when you install it locally. But when you go to production and if they don't allow you to install it on the GAC, you can put it in the bin folder. Like I said earlier, the execution will go to the GAC, not there, go to the bin folder, not there, throw an error. That's about it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next session as well, right? Next to next session, right? Is there a break or something currently? Is there a tea break or something?